Hey guys, my name is Olisa. Thank you so much for dropping by. Be sure to subscribe for more great content. Today's video has actually been requested quite a bit. I don't know why it's taken me this long to do it. I feel like there's kind of a flow to these financial videos, and like I need to talk about one thing before I talk about another thing. So today we are finally discussing it. We are talking about lifestyle creep, lifestyle inflation, what it is, how to avoid it, how to spot it, and how to check yourself and like take a couple of steps back before things basically get out of hand. So yeah, let's jump into lifestyle inflation. Okay, so the best way to describe lifestyle inflation that I have found is that it's when you buy things you don't need to impress people you don't like. That's like the general financial advisor description of lifestyle inflation. It's basically when, because your income has increased, your costs increase proportionately. Okay, so the way this usually shows itself in like our day-to-day lives is like when you get your first job and you're earning 5 or 10,000 shillings, you're perfectly comfortable, perfectly fine with living at home, just using the extra money that like you're earning for like your general upkeep, but then you're not okay with like taking on bills and like taking on expenses. You know, like the 10k is just to like push you for the month, right? But then when you start earning 20,000 shillings, then you start to feel a bit uncomfortable at home. You start feeling like maybe I need my own space, maybe I can get a bed sitter for like 5,000 shillings, and like you can make it work with your budget, but then it's still not any more necessary than it is if you're earning 10,000 shillings, right? But then because you have extra money in your pocket, it's like that saying that people have that like it's end month and like the money in my pocket is itching me, it needs to be spent. You know, that's basically what triggers lifestyle inflation, is that you're buying things that you don't necessarily need because you want to have status in society, right? You want to have status in like your social group or among your friends or something. So like 20,000, you start renting a place for like 5k, right? 50,000, you start looking at a 1-bedroom house, and that is the imaginary budget that we created. Like 50,000 was my salary and I can afford a 1-bedroom house of 14,000 shillings. So why not? I mean, you can afford it, you want more space, you feel like you've outgrown the bed sitter, that's perfectly fine. We'll discuss later on the difference between reasonable lifestyle inflation versus avoidable lifestyle inflation. So you'll find like if in between, like now you're earning 50,000 and then like you get a kid or two or you get married, you know, you do want a bigger space, and it does make sense for you to get a bigger house. So even with 50,000, I don't fault you for wanting a 1-bedroom house. But if you decide with 50,000 that you want a 3-bedroom 35,000 shilling house, that doesn't make any sense, right? Because then you're spending more than half your income on rent in order to like impress people, like, oh, I live here and I live there. Like I see bed sitters in Lavington going for 30,000, 40,000, and I'm just like, that is the foolishest display of foolishness that I have ever seen. How do you pay 40,000 shillings for a bed sitter just because you want to say I live in Lavington? Like I've seen a 1-bedroom going for 100,000 in Runda. Just because you want to say you live in Runda, you'll go for a 1-bedroom guest house. Not even like I mean, it's yeah. Lifestyle inflation is definitely something you need to keep an eye out for, or you'll end up justifying and justifying and justifying. Then at the end of the day, you realize you're spending all your money, you have no real way to account for it, and yet you're not happy in your situation, you know. So back to our scenario: 20,000, 5k bed sitter; 50,000, a nice little 1-bedroom, perfectly reasonable. 100,000, now you need a 3-bedroom house. You see, from the bed sitter to the 1-bedroom, you can also give the argument that like you're moving to a safer neighborhood and like whatever. But then jumping from like a bed sitter to the 3-bedroom house, there's a lot less justifying that you can actually do that would make sense like in the general scheme of things. So it's just, you really just have to keep an eye on your costs, because if you're earning 100,000 shillings, 35,000 shillings on rent is not the worst thing in the world. But is it necessary? That's the question, right? I feel like that's a baseline with all this lifestyle inflation. Before you make any decision, you ask yourself if it's necessary. So like a couple of scenarios that I was thinking of is like you go to the office, you were maybe an intern earning the 10,000 shillings, you're getting promoted, you're getting like a different position, and now you're earning 50,000 shillings, which is great. But then now you've been promoted into the office, out of the intern pool into like the official employees, right? So now you're working with people who are driving their Vitzes, the what other car is there? I genuinely only know my car, which sucks. But yeah, I don't know cars. But then people are driving the People are driving, basically, and they're driving to the office, and you see, hey, this 50,000 shillings, if I actually save up, I can actually buy a car. But the question is it necessary? Is it a need? Are you buying it to feel like you fit in and to impress your coworkers? Or are you buying it because it's actually genuinely going to add to your life, right? Because offices have like car loan incentive programs, right? So you could actually get the money up front to buy your vids, and then they deduct 20,000 a month from your salary. And you're like, you know what? I've jumped up from earning 20,000. Now I get to keep 30,000 out of 50,000. I'm still good. You know, I'm still managing. But then you forget that you're already paying 14,000 shillings in rent. That's 20,000 removed right off the top of your salary for the car. That leaves you 30,000. 14,000 removed for rent. That leaves you with 16,000 to invest and still like live your life, basically, you know? So that's how you find that people end up going into debt, because it's like, oh, I just need 10k to push me for the month, right? Because maybe an emergency comes up and you need to send money to your family, or something happens and you end up dipping into debt in order to meet that need, whereas you could have just avoided it altogether by not getting the car that you now have to finish paying off, that is decreasing in value. So it's not an asset, it's an actual liability that you did not need to add to your life. So you see how lifestyle inflation is like, it's a very slippery slope, because you end up tumbling down it and you don't even realize what's happening until it's too late. I keep seeing ads, like women targeted ads on Facebook, because they're like, oh, car financing options for women. And they're like, if you earn 100,000, they can give you a car where you pay a down payment of 100,000 and then you pay 40,000 a month for like 6 years. That is a long time to commit 40,000 a month. So imagine this scenario: you're earning 100,000 shillings a month, right? 40,000 is being taken right off the top for your new car. That leaves you with 60,000 shillings. You've already moved into the 3-bedroom house, so you're already paying 35,000 shillings, because you thought, I'm earning 100,000. 35,000 is not an unreasonable amount to spend on rent. It's not, until that means 75,000 shillings of your 100,000 shillings is already like evaporated. It's already claimed, spoken for, before you even have that check in your hand, before the direct deposit even hits your account. 70,000 right off the top, gone. That leaves you 25,000 shillings for investing, for building yourself, for growing yourself. Maybe you wanted to take night classes, now you can't afford it, and yet you're earning 100,000. So that means you have 25,000 disposable. Yet when you were earning 20,000 shillings, you had 15,000 shillings disposable when you lived in the bedsitter. So do you see, like, your salary has gone up 5 times, but like your excess income has only gone up by 10,000 shillings. It doesn't make sense. So lifestyle inflation, I will keep singing it and singing it. Like, I feel like I mention it in every video, just because I can see how easy it is to get like trapped in that rat race. And then you see that's when it becomes tricky, because you know I have to earn at least 100,000 or more. So when you hear rumors of retrenchments in the office, you start getting like high blood pressure, because if you lose your job, you cannot service that 40,000 shilling loan, and all the money that you've put into the car just disappears. Because if you have to be auctioned, cars lose value the second you start driving them. So there's no way you're getting all your money back. There's no way the people who sold you their car are getting all of their money. So before it even trickles down to you, it's like such a hassle. So before it even trickles down to you, like if you buy a car of 1 million shillings, you've paid off 300,000 shillings, that 40,000 a month thing, 700,000 is left. And then they take you to auction, they sell the car for 500,000. They are getting paid. You are not getting a cent of your money back. That is a problem, right? So lifestyle inflation, super tricky, and you have to keep an eye out for it. Like, you have to actively manage it so that it doesn't overwhelm you. Another scenario is basically just trying to compete with people when their situation is not your situation. I heard a saying that says, don't compare your page 1 or your page 5 to someone's page 20. Like, you don't know the work they've put in to be where they are, or you don't know the scenarios in their lives that have happened to put them where they are. But then now, because your friend who also started interning at the same time as you is now living in a 2-bedroom house, you now need to figure out how to live in a 2-bedroom house. Because even if you're earning 20,000 shillings, you can get a 2-bedroom house for 16,000 shillings. You can. And I know people do it, and I think it's psychotic. It's how do you give yourself 4,000 shillings to survive? But because of appearance's sake, because your friend has done it, how can you not do it? You also have to have that 2-bedroom house, right? First of all, a 2-bedroom house for 16,000 shillings may not be in the safest environment to begin with. Then you leave yourself with 4,000 shillings because you know I have this amount that I can borrow from Tala. I have this amount I can borrow from KCB. I have this amount that I can borrow from Mshwari. And then you live your life on loans, and that's how things just spiral out of control. So again, do not let other people's successes, other people's perceived progress give you pressure, because you never know what it took them to get to that position that they're in. You just like it's important to like focus on your own path, on your own road, on your own life, and like, you know, and let things unfold for you as they are meant to, because the things that are for you cannot be taken by someone else. Literally, if it was meant for you, it will stay for you. So it's really important, and this is something I am also actively continually learning. It's important to work on practicing contentment. So be happy with where you are, be grateful, because where you are today is not where you were last year, and we're very grateful for that, because things change, things improve, and even if you're not actively, it's like when you're looking at a kid growing, right? On the day-to-day, you're not going to see the different changes that are happening, but then someone who saw the kid 3 months ago versus today is definitely going to see like a huge difference, right? So it's important to like take a second, take a step back, and actually reflect and like be grateful for what you have and where you are, and like the progress that you have made, because that is yours and that can't be taken away from you. And whatever else is meant to come to you in the future will be yours. If you start like rushing and like taking shortcuts, and that's how you find yourself that you're someone's clandé, because you want to drive this car, because you want to live in this neighborhood, because you want to, and like, I feel like at the end of the day, you have to build a life that you yourself can respect yourself for. So if you look at your life and you're like, oh, if someone left this house right now, I wouldn't be able to afford rent. Like, I feel like that's a really difficult position you've put yourself in. Just saying, it's important to practice contentment before you find yourself spiraling out of control. Like now, you have 40,000 as your car loan. You have 35,000 as your rent waiting for you. You still have other like expenses, because the car loan is not the only car expense. Let me tell you, I have mentioned my car issues in the past year. It's not the only car expense, right? So that 25,000 that you have at 100,000 is eroded very quickly. And then your boss comes and says, oh, you want to keep your job? Meet me at XYZ hotel. You see, it becomes trickier for you to like have a backbone and tell him like where to shove it, versus if you are actually living below your means and you actually have an emergency fund. First of all, I will have a financial playlist that you can be watching just to like keep up with the order of this video, because now you see, if I talked about lifestyle inflation before I talked about having an emergency fund, it wouldn't really make sense, you know? So that is why this video has taken forever to come, but we are here, we are grateful. So yeah, you can tell your boss exactly where to shove it if he comes up with those stunts, versus if you've already put yourself in a difficult situation. A lot of people, like, I love these little sayings because I feel like they just like keep me going, you know? So one that I absolutely 100% stand by is, don't hold on to a mistake just because you spent a lot of time making it. So even if you are currently finding yourself in that situation where you have the loans and you have the rent and you have so many bills and it's like eating up all your income, get yourself out of it. It's okay to forgive yourself for the mistake. Take whatever hit it is, take whatever loss it is that you're going to be eating, and then just keep it moving, because we learn by making mistakes. Some of us love to learn from other people's mistakes, but even then I still find myself making them every so often. And it's important to like forgive yourself for that, because if you knew better, you would have done better. But now that you know better, do better. Actively work towards changing it. So if you can maybe sell that car, and maybe you've paid, it's a 1 million shilling car, you've paid 300,000 shillings on it. If you can find a buyer, because auctions don't really give you the best price. So if the car is something that can be auctioned at 500,000, you might be able to find a buyer for 650,000, right? So if you can sell it for 650,000, the only thing that you've lost is 50,000. I hope that makes sense, because you've already paid them 300,000, like the people who have given you the car. You've paid them 300,000 out of your own pocket. You've sold the car for 650. So it's not just 50,000 that you've lost, because again, this is back to opportunity cost and how you don't actually see the opportunity cost. So it's easy to write it off. So the 300,000 is definitely a hit, but then even in that 300,000, you were getting use out of the car. So you can just like forgive yourself and be like, I was renting a car for maybe 6 months, maybe it's been a year, maybe it's been 2 years. I was renting a car for that 300,000. It was a foolish decision, and it is the last time I make that kind of foolish decision, right? So if you can actually sit down and do your calculations and figure out a way to get yourself out of that debt, then the only money that you've really like set on fire basically is 50,000 shillings. And I feel like that's something you can very easily recover from, versus trying to recover from 700,000 shillings, you know? And again, all these financial things, they're very, very personal. So So maybe you're earning 50,000 shillings, but then you get pregnant, which is a blessing, and they're twins. So you can't live in a 1-bedroom house with twins. I mean, you can, but you may not want to live in a 1-bedroom house with twins, right? So maybe you will end up needing to get a 3-bedroom house when you're earning 50,000 shillings because your twins need a room, and then you're going to have a live-in nanny because you have to go back to work and like make that money, you know, especially now that you have people depending on you. And because on this channel we believe in being independent and not like 100% relying on someone else to like be there today and want to consistently be there tomorrow. Like, I'm not trying to be pessimistic, I'm just trying to be worst case scenario type of realistic, because if you cater for the worst case scenario, then when the best case scenario happens, then you're flourishing, you know. But the worst case scenario will not break you down, right? So if it's just you and your 2 kids and the nanny, then you might actually need a 3-bedroom house, and then you see 50,000 starts to become a little bit tight. So in that situation, you can't say that the lifestyle inflation is bad, because you won't be earning 1,000,000 shillings and still be expected to live in a 5,000 shilling bed sitter, right? So you just have to make sure that your costs going up proportionate with your income is not getting out of hand. That's all I'm saying, because you find, like that's saying more money, more problems, right? It's exactly what lifestyle inflation represents, is that the more money you have, the more responsibilities you take on, and the less money you actually have for yourself, right? And by for yourself, I mean like building for your future, like saving for a house, like saving for a new car, because there's nothing wrong with getting a new car as long as you can actually afford it. So if you're paying 40,000 for 6 years, you're assuming that for the next 6 years, your job is secure. You're assuming for the next 6 years, you will have earning capacity, because you never know what actually happened. Like, life is so weird in that it can throw you a curveball you never saw coming. And it's like, I was watching a like house renovation thing, because I'm going to be renovating. And what the guy said is that one of the worst decisions that he sees people making when they're renovating a house is doing everything at once. He says that he always advises his clients to only take on a project that they can wrap up in 30 days, because you never know, like renovating a house, especially as like a married couple, is very, very stressful, and a lot of people decide to get divorced halfway through the project, right? So if you both separate, then neither of you are willing to put in your finances to complete the house and to complete it to like a beautiful like standard, right? So you'll find that you end up having to like just wrap things up sloppily, especially if you have like your bathroom is under construction, your kitchen is under construction, the outside is still upside down, the roof is maybe being redone, like so many things happening simultaneously leaves you in a worse position than if you were able to just like, if you're doing the bathroom and you decide to get divorced, like you can finish up the bathroom in 30 days, put the house on the market if you're selling it, or like buy each other out or whatever, and like keep it moving, right? So it doesn't hold up your life in this project. Or like if you're in the middle of redoing your entire house and then like you lose your job, like corona hits, no one saw this thing coming, right? So if you're in the middle of that and that hits and there are no finances to continue the house, but the house is not livable, like it doesn't make any sense. So it's the same situation that you're assuming with the 40,000 per month for 6 years that you'll be able to sustain that, versus if God forbid like now corona happens, people's salaries are being slashed. So like if you're earning 100, your off the top commitments are 70, but your salary has been cut to 50. You see, you can always move houses and like get somewhere cheaper, but then the 40,000 is still a consistent. So are you going to be paying 40,000 for a car and living off of 10? It does not make sense. So you have to keep a very close eye on lifestyle inflation, because lifestyle inflation itself is not inherently bad. It's when we take it too far that it becomes like a joke, right? So another example is like you have kids. If you have 3 children, you can't be expected to still live in the bed sitter when you can afford more. Not everyone can afford more. Even that living in the bed sitter situation, it's not that I have anything against you with 20,000 living in a 5,000 bed sitter, because not everyone's home situation is like great. Not everyone has the luxury and the privilege of being able to like live with parents or live with family, and completely understand that like you have to make the best of your situation. Again, these finance videos are very, very personal. It is personal finance. So my situation will not apply to your situation, will not apply to your friend's situation, because maybe you're able to live at home, but your sister can't. Maybe you have a better relationship with your parents or with your aunts or with your uncles, with your family than your siblings do. So you can't like shame them for wanting their own space, for wanting their own place, whatever it may end up costing them. because you don't know their situation, basically. And I feel like this is what happens both ways. Like, we judge other people's choices based on our perception of their financial situation without actually knowing what their financial situation is. So either way, it's good not to, because it can give you the pressure of, I need to keep up, I need to catch up, but you don't know where they're coming from. Or it can give you the pressure of, oh, they make such bad decisions and I make such good ones, therefore I don't need to look closer at my own life, you know? So I have been trying to actively practice contentment in my life, because now we're gonna discuss a little bit about me, because maybe discussing my situation will help you figure something out about yours. I don't know, but my situation is changing. I've mentioned in a previous video, I am moving, and I am very excited about moving, and I'm moving to a bigger house. I don't need a bigger house, but it makes more financial sense for me to live there than to live here. So based on my situation and my numbers that apply to my life, I am actually benefiting from moving there. It will cost me less to exist in this world living there than it does living here. So because lifestyle inflation isn't automatically a bad thing, right? So me moving to a bigger house means that I actually have new needs that apply. Versus if I stayed in this house, then I wouldn't need a second bed for the guest room, right? So little costs like those are cropping up now that I'm moving. Even just general moving costs become a whole thing. But then in the long run, I know this will benefit me. So short term, I'm taking a bit of a hit, but then long term, it is actually a better situation for me, right? So lifestyle inflation, the way that I am analyzing mine is by looking at needs versus wants versus what is in between, and how can I push that as far into the future as possible so that I can give myself more time to save for it, right? So a need is a second bed for the guest room because my grandparents are going to be visiting. That is a need, that is an immediate need, that is a need that I want to meet as soon as I get the keys to the other house. But a want is getting a dining table, because we can all just sit on the couch and eat our meals as we have been doing without any issues. But I want to be more comfortable. So I want to get a dining table, but I don't need one, right? So I can acknowledge that. I can look at that soberly and be like, this is something I want. So my compromise for that is, instead of getting like a whole dining set, because that's just not a cost I need to be taking on now, I can get like little sort of stools, but like really, really cute. I'll insert a picture of what I was thinking about getting until I decided to like go a more custom route. So I'm really excited for like the DIYs that are coming in that new house. But you see, these are all extra costs that I did not have when I lived here, because my grandparents have visited me here and we sat on this couch and we ate our meals and we were happy, right? But then there, because there is more space, there is more options available, I'm going to get the side tables, basically. So those stools will make it so that I don't feel like my guests are holding their dinner plate in their hands as they're eating. Like, it's just a more comfortable situation. But then it eases the pressure on me to get a dining table. So you see, the stools cost wouldn't even exist if I wasn't moving. So that's part of my lifestyle inflation, but that's not necessarily bad lifestyle inflation. Like, I'm trying to minimize the cost as much as I possibly can. And it's a process. I mean, this is what works for my situation, for my life. Maybe for you, a dining table is a necessity because you don't feel like you've started your day well without one. Then go ahead and get one, but then budget for it, plan for it. Don't just like go into debt to get it because you're in such a hurry, and make sure it actually empowers you to like meet your long-term goals versus taking away from your dreams, right? Because it's like robbing yourself tomorrow to satisfy today, and it doesn't really work. It doesn't really make sense, right? So another need is for that same guest room, I'm going to need to buy beddings. Quality beddings are actually quite expensive. So I'm going to budget maybe like 5,000 bob for that. I don't know, but that is a need that does not currently exist because I have more than enough beddings. I am perfectly comfortable with where I am today, but that other room definitely needs, like, we're starting from scratch, so we'll actually do like a guest room makeover video, and I'm so excited. Like, the content will just be so good, but that means it's an actual cost, right? So, but that's a need, because I can't just like throw a mattress in there and be like, we're good, you can sleep there. Like, that doesn't make sense. So I want it to be a really inviting space, and that comes with its own cost. So even then I have to decide what the needs of that space are versus the wants of that space, right? But then a want in this new house is mkeka wa mbao flooring, because I love the way the transformation it gives, like the warmth, because I hate tile with my whole heart, and the carpets that I have are not quite big enough for the living room. So it's just I would love to get the mkeka wa mbao installed, but then I've priced it out and it's going to be quite expensive, and that's just not a need. That's not a need even in my immediate future, because in my opportunity cost video I mentioned that I need to get a water tank. 10,000 liters, 60,000. Installing it, probably 10,000. So like 70,000 liter water tank versus 100,000 on mkeka wa mbao. Opportunity cost, I'm gonna get the water tank first, because that is something that's actually affecting my quality of life. In case I get there and like the 5,000 liter tank is just not enough for me, then the 10,000 will definitely meet all my needs, right? Versus if I get mkeka wa mbao and like my eyes are happy, my heart is happy because I have wood looking floors situation, but then it's not practically impacting my life. So these are all just long-term plans that we're discussing. Both of these things are lifestyle inflation, because if I continue living here, water is free, which is amazing, which is such a gift. Like, that's one thing I'm really sad to be giving up. But then I understand that the lifestyle inflation of moving from free water to paid water is worth the added benefits around that situation. So even though I may end up having to like buy water every once in a while, I think first of all, the rent savings, so paying 8,000 bob for a 3-bedroom house versus 14,000 shillings for a 1-bedroom house, like you really can't compare that. And also every improvement I'm making is like permanent and for me, versus here, every improvement I'm making, every time I costed it, like I did the costing of getting like wallpaper on like half of this wall, not even the full wall, like behind the camera, and that's like 25,000 shillings. That's a lot of money to spend when it's not something you can take with you. Like, it's not like you can reuse wallpaper in a different space, and if the landlord hates it and rips it down, like that's my complete loss, you know. Versus in your own house, if you put in wallpaper, then it definitely stays with you. Or in a house that you plan to stay in for like 5 years, then if you put in wallpaper, it's worth the cost. I hope that makes sense. Needs versus wants is what defines acceptable, not necessarily good, but acceptable lifestyle inflation versus excessive lifestyle inflation. So my plan is to maximize on what I already own and like build on it on a budget, with a plan, with a written down plan, and like executing it step by step and budgeting for each step. So that is what I hope to like sort of inspire you to do, sort of just bring value to your life in terms of you can analyze things and like actually understand what is costing you and why it's costing you, and if it's necessary for it to cost you, and then you make the decisions based on that, you know. So I hope this video is helpful. I hope this video actually adds value to your life. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you hanging out with me and like discussing money again, because I'm actually having a lot of fun filming these videos. So I'm really glad it's actually helping out like a few of you. So appreciate it. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe down below. Let me know if you want me to talk about anything else in one of these financial videos, because I have like a whole list of things, and I feel like we're making good progress. So yeah, so my next financial video is probably going to be about moving costs and like what I have deemed necessary versus unnecessary things to spend money on. So yeah, and also moving vlogs. I'm so excited to do like a moving vlog, like a clean with me, like a, you know, all of those things. So lots more awesome content coming up. So yeah, thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more, leave me a comment, and I will see you in my next video.